Hello, welcome. In this video, you will learn how to read chord charts and tablature notation for ukulele. This is a really useful skill and communication method so that if you ever want to look up how to play a song, you can understand what all those little diagrams mean. So get your ukulele ready and let's get started. First, we will start with the most common form of charts. These are chord charts. And so the one that you see on the screen now shows you how to play a C chord. You already learned that, but let me tell you how to read it. The first line at the top represents the nut, okay? Then the lines going down represent the strings. The other horizontal lines represent the fret wires. So on the chart on the screen, you see a dot. And so the dot, if you look closely, is on the 3rd fret of string A. And if you were to put your finger on there, because that's what the dot means. The dot means put your finger there. That means you put your finger on the 3rd fret of A string, and when you strum all the strings, you will get a C chord. So that's how you read the chord chart. Now, chord charts can get a little tricky because you'll have 2 dots, 3 dots, sometimes even 4 dots. So let me explain those now. When you see something that has 2 dots, like an F chord, that means that you need to put 2 fingers at the same time on the fretboard or on the fingerboard. So the one that you see on the screen now, it's for F chord. So that means I need to put 1 finger here on the 1st fret of my E string and another finger here on the 2nd fret of my G. So when I do that, I need to be extra careful not to touch the other strings because you see the other strings don't have dots on them. So I need to only touch those 2 strings, and the way to do that is by curving my fingers, curving the hand, squeezing using leverage with the thumb on the back. And then when I play that, I'll get an F chord, so it'll sound totally different to the first one, which was C. So now this one's F. And so that's why they have different names and they have different locations. So now let's look at one that has a half bar. Bar means, with the ukulele at least, and the guitar, it means that you're going to press more than 1 string with 1 finger. And so let's look at B flat. B flat's a really good one. It's challenging, and if you can't play B flat right now, don't beat yourself up. This is something that comes with practice. I'm just introducing you to chord charts today. So with B flat, for example, we have a half bar. And what that means is that I'm going to press half of the strings, or 2 strings, with my index finger. Okay? Then I'm going to use my middle finger and ring fingers on the 2nd and 3rd frets of the next strings over. Now this is a really tricky one to do because with 1 finger I have to be flat to press 2, and with the others I have to be curved to not touch the other strings. So that's why it takes more time to play this chord, but this is just for demonstration purposes. So I'm going to do flat to press those 2, and then curve, and then curve. And so this is what a B flat sounds like, but I make it look easy, but I'm actually working really hard to both squeeze and have the right posture. But that's what a half bar chord looks like. So now let's look at something like C sharp minor. For C sharp minor, you'll notice the bar goes way down. So now we're on the 4th fret, we're down here, and the bar is asking me to cover 3 strings and then skip a fret and then another one. So this is a way more challenging chord. I don't know if I can even play it right now, but so I'm gonna just save myself some time and bar the whole thing, all 4 strings, and then press with my ring finger on the other one. It came out, I'm lucky. So this is what C sharp minor would sound like. Yeah, there it is. And that's what it looks like on a chord chart. So that's how you read chord charts. But when you're a beginner, most of your chords will have 1, 2, and 3 dots. Usually not a lot of bars, and that's okay. Stick to those until you gain the skills and strengthen your hand, and then slowly start adding a bar chord at a time. So to review, chord charts help us read how to play chords. This is when we strum through all 4 strings for the most part. And the top line represents the nut. The other lines under that represent the fret wires. And the vertical lines represent the strings. The dots on the charts tell us where our fingers go. Okay, now let's talk about tablature notation. This one is a little tricky, but once you learn how to read it, you can read it all the time. So with tablature notation, we also call it tab, the first string or the first line is for A. And the reason that's tricky is that when we're holding our ukulele, A is at the bottom, but on tab, it's at the top. So the first line on tab is A. If we see a 0 on the first line, that means that we're gonna pick without pressing anything. That's what the 0 means. The 0 means nothing. If we see a 1 on that first line, that means we go to the first fret and only pick on that string. If we see a 2, then we're supposed to play on the second fret. If we see a 3, then we're only supposed to play on the third fret. Now, when you go to the next line, we also go to the next string. The next line is E. If we see a 0 on the second line, that means no hands, no fingers. You're just going to pick on E string. If you see a 1 on the second line, that means the first fret. Now here's an example. If you see a 5 on the second line, that means you go to the 5th fret and pick on that one, on the second line or your second string. Now the third line is for C. So here's a trick question. If you see a 7 on the third line, where is that on your ukulele? Try and see if you can figure it out. Remember that A is your first, E is your second, C is your third. So where would that be? What if you see a 4 on C string or on the third line? Well, let's figure that out. On the third line, that's our third string, that's C. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's where that would be. Or a 10. Well, we would need to go all the way down to the fret marker with where the 10 is at and be up there. And last but not least, the last line represents the string closest to your face. This is your 4th string or G. So if there is a 5 on G, that means you go to the 5th fret of G and pick there. Fingerstyle is a really easy way to read melodies, to read scales, and to read solos, but sometimes you will also see different ways that tab is used. So review this video over and over again until it kind of sinks in, and then move on to the next lesson. I'll see you in the next video. In this video, you will learn how to strum and sing, and we will do our first song. I do like to start with children's songs just because